Dean of Cabinet, the Honourable Minister Kimea, Honourable Ministers of the Government of Liberia, Secretary of State Olsen, the Government of Sweden, Professor Tape, colleagues in the diplomatic community, United Nations colleagues, eminent guests, and a special hello to Victoria Macy, whose speech I will not forget. Thank you, Victoria. Let me begin by expressing our gratitude on behalf of the United Nations to the government of Sweden for supporting the Liberia Stockholm+50 National Consultations, which will bring together the whole of government, which will bring together the whole of society in what will be a much needed consultation, and I hope we can have a frank and open discussion, speaking the truth that we need to speak in order to be able to move forward. I would also like to applaud the partnership which already exists, and speaking on behalf of the UN, all UN colleagues, but also to thank UNDP for the work that they've done in leading the UN on Stockholm+50. The Embassy of Sweden, of course, thank you very much. The Environmental Protection Agency, and other partners who've been involved in planning of these consultations. I'm always reminded, when thinking of Stockholm, the original Stockholm Conference, of something that the economist Jeffrey Sachs said when we were launching the SDGs. He referred to the 72 Stockholm Conference, and he said that was the outset, the connection we made between the environment and human development. In 2015, we were launching the SDGs, and we have to have another conference, Jeffrey Sachs pointed out, in 2030, to once again establish a connection between the environment and development. We will have failed. And we will have failed not only ourselves, but successive generations. So we need to act, and we need to act urgently on pollution, on mitigating and adapting to climate change effects, and restoring the nature and the biodiversity that we know so well here in Liberia. And it's a collective responsibility on all nations, and I'm grateful for the excellent image from Ambassador McCarthy pointing out that we live here in the long, the global long, in terms of the carbon sink that we have here, which allows the industrial world, the polluting world, to call it what it is, the chance to continue. But we need to have a fair deal on carbon. And that is a subject which will no doubt be discussed in COP27 Sharm el-Sheikh, which takes place in November this year. And we need to start, as of now, to work with African nations, but nations globally, to make sure that that discussion is productive. But before that, the 2nd to the 3rd of June 2022, world leaders will meet at an event convened by the UN General Assembly in Stockholm to commemorate 50 years since 1972 UN Conference on Human Environment. And in that meeting, there will be, as previous speakers have pointed out, a number of extremely important agenda points. And we can recall the words of Maurice Strong, the Secretary General of the 72 Conference, who said, and I quote, "A realization that man," meaning mankind, I imagine, "has come to one of those seminal points in his or her history where his or her own activities are the principal determinants of his or her own future." And Maurice Strong pointed out, therefore, that it is with us, and only us, that we have the possibility, and it's only through solidarity that we're going to be able to move forward or face defeat. So, 50 years later, we face this intractable, seemingly intractable planetary crisis of climate change, of nature degradation, of biodiversity loss, which threatens our current prosperity, but far, far worse than that. It threatens the prosperity and well-being of our children. It also threatens human health, it threatens equality, it threatens peace. And there's a time where I think it is unnecessary to establish the challenges we face in maintaining stability worldwide, that this debate will be not only followed with care throughout the world, but also here in Liberia. As Antonio Guterres, the UN Secretary General, said, we live with an existentialist threat, and it needs an urgent, all-out effort if we're going to turn things around. So, we hope these dialogues will be able to bring people together, but we also hope that this dialogue will allow us not only to hear the voices of the poor, of the youth, of women, of indigenous groups, of local communities, in any marginalized groups, but also to amplify these voices. I believe it's appropriate to conclude this plea that we take this matter with not only the utmost seriousness, but with, and Victoria, again, I apologize, I'm going to borrow from what you said. We take this discussion with a view to having concrete outcomes. We are delighted to hear that Liberia is part of the Convention on Plastic. And again, we look forward to imminent action to make sure that is translated into reality. I'd like to conclude by evoking our common agenda, which is the agenda which was launched by the UN Secretary General fairly recently, but when we speak of our common agenda, it is our common agenda, everybody. We need to have visionary thinking. We need to think out of the box. We need to think of new ideas. We need to think of solutions to the problems. But also, we need to involve young people to get that innovative thinking that's necessary. And we need solidarity, because if we have learned anything from the pandemic that we're going and hopefully will one day get through, from the situation in Ukraine, from the environment, if we are going to be able to get through this, it is through solidarity. Thank you very much.